Hello, hello. Hopefully, everybody's doing good. We are starting a four-part series today on goals. How do I determine measurable goals for my child? Kind of an important topic, especially right now. I mean, I keep saying especially right now, but it's true. Especially right now, things are crazy and difficult, and parents are wondering what the heck they're supposed to do. So, going through things in regards to COVID is important, but also going through things that are just important in regards to your IEP is imperative. So, we're going to talk about this. We're going to go through it. It's again a four-part series, so it's going to continue. Okay, so if you are new to watching me live, post a 1 below. That's your first through third time, and I want to welcome you. And again, if you're new, if you don't know about the group, just type in the search bar Autism Mama Rocks the IEP group, and you will be able to join our amazing group. So with that said, let's get started. Again, post a 1 below if you are new, first through third time, a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Hi, Tina. How are you? Okay, so if you don't know me, my name is Raven Woods, and I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks the IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting. With that said, I want you guys to share. Every month, I do a drawing. And at the end of the month, I take everybody's name who shared. So if you share, post share below in the comment section, and you will win a gift. And that can be an hour with me. It can be a Amazon gift card. It can be different things. So I want you guys to definitely share. Plus, we need to share it out there because there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of parents who just don't know what it is to do, I want you guys to know that you got this, and just know you got this, okay? Just know that. All right, so let's get started. I got my notes in front of me. Tomorrow is Monday tip of the week, so make sure to catch me live. And then Thursdays, of course, content night. And Sundays, I try to go on with some content as well, just not as lengthy as Thursdays. So how do you determine measurable annual goals? So annual goals are basically a statement, okay, that is in your child's IEP, and it's what they need to demonstrate over a period of time, okay? Typically a year, but then of course you should have short-term objectives that go underneath with different dates. So I always say October, January, February, and then again, I would do October, February, and then the end of the year. But I really like when people have their IEPs like August. So the end of August, because then you're really following a year, and it makes it really nice when you have quarterly IEPs to go over your goals and your progress reports. And so it's actually like a perfect time. Okay, so a statement of measurable goals, including academic achievement and functional performance, is designed to meet your child's needs, as you may well know. All right. It should also meet their educational needs based on their unique disabilities. Okay, so if your IEP is implemented properly, your annual goal must be identified. It must meet your child's needs, and it must be identified as well in the PLAF, which is your present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. I love talking about goals. I love talking about data. I love talking about how to write goals. And it's something that is very confusing for many, and was definitely very confusing for myself, a while back. And so I like to go over this over and over in different ways because we all learn differently. So hopefully you guys grasp this, and it kind of becomes something that just eventually becomes something natural to you. Okay, so measurable statements that describe what a child can reasonably do within a period of time, okay, is what your goals should be, but with high expectations, not low. Okay, a lot of schools will want to put lower expectations. into your goals and as goals, kind of fudge the wording because it makes things easier for them. Or if you challenge a goal, then the wording can actually transcribe to something else, if that makes sense. So you want your goals to be very straightforward. There's no guessing as to what that goal means and what that child is expected to accomplish and to master by the end of that year, and then what goals specifically they're to master on a quarterly basis. Make sense? Okay, so the academical functional goals should focus on learning and behavior, okay, because that is what is going to impede their learning, okay? So when your child basically qualifies for special ed, right? It's based off their impact of disability. So their impact of disability in the educational setting either has to do with behavior or it has to do with learning, okay? It's not about the disability. It's about the effect of the disability on your child in the educational setting, okay? So they should address the needs, and this part should be summarized, okay, in detail of your child, all right? And it should be in your present levels, and it should be reflected in your child's goals. So we're going to get there, all right? So for students taking alternate assessments, there should be at least one goal with corresponding objectives and short-term objectives for each of those areas of need. And this is really important because I've found that this is actually not something that's done. So in my area, the alternative assessment is called the VAP, VAAP. And if a child in any state is on alternative assessments, okay, not on the diploma track, and taking the state assessment, by law in your IEP, you must have short-term objectives. They used to be called benchmarks. That actually should be removed from your IEPs because they're no longer called benchmarks. They're called short-term objectives. Okay, so make sure that you know what they're supposed to be learning in the alternative assessments that they are taking. Okay, find out the name if you don't know the name. Find out what it is that your state has to then turn into them, what the district has to turn into the state where that assessment is, because by law, if your child is on an alternative assessment track, the school is required to do certain things with that child in regards to that assessment track, okay? And I believe it's on a monthly, if not quarterly basis, they have to submit, and it's different each state, so find out. They have to submit what that child is doing, what they're working on, and data, all right? This is probably data that you have never seen, okay? I know for years, I never received this information because I didn't even know about it. I knew that it was checked off, that it said alternative assessment, but I didn't know what that really meant. I just knew that my child wasn't getting a diploma and on that track unless I switched it. And I knew that it was a different type of test, but I didn't know that it was something that the state requires the district to mail in or electronically submit data and proof that XYZ is being worked on. Interesting, right? So goals and objectives provide a mechanism for determining whether your child is progressing in the special education program. And that's with 1414 in reference to IDEA, okay? And that is and has to do with appropriate placement. It has to do with if they're in a more restrictive or a least restrictive environment, or if they're in the least restrictive environment, what types of services, accommodations, and modifications are put in play to make sure that they can succeed and make progress. So individual need determinations are supposed to be in your present levels. and they should be written and then coincide with your goals. Okay, so the IEP must list measurable annual goals, and it needs to be consistent with the needs that are in your present levels. So in present levels should be your child's strengths, your child's weaknesses. Yes, Skylar. In just a few minutes. Shut the door.
How many is that?
15. So you want to make sure that they match. All right. So in your child's, just to give you an example, in your child's present levels, if it says Timmy is really struggling with cutting paper, say this is an OT present level, cutting paper straight. All right. Or, you know, they have to learn like to zigzag or to cut a line or whatever it may be as far as that goal is concerned. Okay. Because that's a pretty big goal, like kindergarten, first grade, sometimes second grade even, or more. And so if that is stated in your present levels, then that better be a goal. Okay. If Timmy's having weakness in cutting and manipulation with movement in the hands, okay, and that can also be a sensory issue, it needs to be a goal, okay, that Timmy is going to learn to cut straight by such and such date, okay, and 9 out of 10 trials, you know, by such and such date as measured by report data collection, you know. So you want to make sure that they work together, and, you know, you want to go back and forth because I know the pages are different, you know, from your present levels all the way to your goals, especially with some of y'all who have pretty big goals and big IEPs. So just make sure that they look alike, okay? The next thing you want to look at is for each annual goal, the IEP must indicate those short-term instructional objectives and the evaluative criteria. Okay, and so what that is what is used to measure those goals. What does that look like? Okay. Short-term objectives are also basically a way to look at it like stairwell, you know, that it's the steps to get to the goal, the mastery of the total goal. Okay, so you have a total goal, and then you have like 3 short-term objectives, and then you get back to that main goal. Okay, so it's like a stepstone, stepping ladder, etc., to get to that main goal. All right, so measurable annual goals, including those short-term objectives, must relate to meeting that student's unique needs, and be very, what would be the word for it? It should basically meet their needs in regards to their disability, okay? So when you're making goals and you look at their present levels and you go through what their strengths and their weaknesses are, really look at the strengths too, because that may become a goal, and sometimes teachers mess it up because they'll put weaknesses into the strengths. They'll say things like, there should never be where they put a strength and then they say, but da 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 da. No, that should be in the weakness area. So it should be, this is his strength. Bam, here's a sentence, period. Then the weakness should be wherever that but is. Okay, so that should be a sentence. There should never be any buts in your IEP. There's no but. There's, this is the weakness, this is the strength, period. Okay, now there can be, this is the weakness, however, he is doing this. Okay, but not a but, you know, but leads to a negativity. However is also. So you can also, I like certain wording in IEPs. I think it's important. I think it's reflective of the child. And I think that, you know, more importance needs to be on that verbiage. Okay. So another thing in your annual goals must be related to is meeting each of the students' educational needs that result from their disability and behavior. So if behavior impedes learning, what is going to happen so that it doesn't? What is going to happen to deflect what is instigating, what is triggering, and basically the antecedent of that behavior. You want to make sure that behavior has basically an outlet. Okay, so if a behavior happens, what's going to occur to deflect that behavior so that it doesn't so much impede learning? There has to be a BIP in place. I hear all the time, guys, where your children are having some behavior issues, and they don't have to be severe. They can be simply the child can't sit, or different things like that. That's not, a behavior that you would think of that would be throwing something or whatever, right? So a lot of people think of like really aggressive things when you think of behavior, but behavior can be stimming. Okay, so don't let schools tell you that a BIP can't be put in place for something as what you would call simple as stimming, because that's a behavior. It's a behavior that affects education and it affects that child. So there has to be a resolution for that. There has to be a way and something in place so that the teacher or the aide or whoever has that other option. Okay, so Timmy's doing work. Timmy starts stimming. Okay, now we're going to move on to this because that's in the BIP to, deflect and relax and get things back together. And then Timmy comes back and then he works again. So there has to be an outlet. That can be a chair, that can be a beanbag, that can be walk around the school. Whatever it is, there has to be some sort of plan of action that's going to take place. And that requires a BIP. Now, it could be put into accommodations, but it's a behavior. So, yeah, put it into accommodations, but it's a behavior. A BIP is specific to behaviors that impede learning. Teachers and schools, and not really teachers, but schools and districts don't like to do BIPs because it requires an FBA, and FBAs should be done by a BCBA. That costs money. And then, it's something that just one of those other things that can be used. All right. And if it's not implemented, it can be used, So anything that can be used, schools will not want to put in place, basically, unless really necessary, in their opinion. Okay? So next, measurable goals set the general direction for instruction. All right? And direct relationships between goals and the needs that they must be identified and what they must identify. Okay? A goal must be meaningful, number one, and measurable, of course. It must be able to be monitored, which is how data comes about. It has to be able to be monitored. And useful in decision making. So what that means is when you're at an IEP meeting, and this is something I didn't know for many years either, is you have this goal, and if it's measurable and smart, and the way it should be written, it should 100% be able to be monitored. And when you monitor a goal, you're able to take really good data. All right. And data is what shows you that your child is on the right track, is not on the right track, is doing well, is not doing well, and should advise the school system and the team that, okay, this is working or this is not. And what I have found is many teams are not adequately picking up on things that aren't working. They're letting all this time go by with the excuse of, now mind you, this excuse makes sense in the beginning, but it's, oh, well, let's just give them time. Let's give them time to improve. Let's give them time to adjust. Let's just wait it out, see how everything goes. And then time just keeps ticking. And 1 year leads to the next. And so while that makes sense in the beginning, there has to be a cap put on it. So If they say, okay, well, let's, give it some time and let him, get back into the swing of things, or, let's just give it a little bit more time to see if he'll get it, etc. Then say, okay, that's fine. However, we're going to put a cap on this. So within 90 days, XYZ needs to occur, or we need to come back to the table and readjust and make changes and figure out what's working and what's not. And if it's not working, why? And what do we need to do to make it better, to make it work, to make sure that it's something that will benefit my child, to where there's progress being made. Okay? So don't be afraid to make sure that your goals are being monitored. How they're being monitored should definitely be in your IEP. As report data collection should always be one of the ways in which your goals are monitored and able to be proven. Written work is fine too, but you never not want to have report data collection. And you want to be able to make sure that you stay on top of that. So each time, and this can go into your IEP, is each time you receive a progress report, ask for the data for each and every one of those goals to support what's put in the progress report, because all that is writing in the goal. That doesn't tell me anything. Okay, so again, it must be meaningful, it must be measurable, and it must be able to be monitored. All right. So, and of course, accomplished, mastered by the end, kind of the given, what we hope. So other than it be able to be monitored, it must be a goal that you see gradual progress. It can't be something that there's no progress and they're like, we're getting there, we're getting there, we're getting there. In our state, or at least in my district, with goals, they have like a 1 through 5. So 1 is they haven't started, 2 is like they're getting ready to start, 3 is the child is making sufficient progress, whatever the hell that means. Number 4 is almost mastered, and 5 is mastered. I mean, how they come up with these numbers, I don't know. But the one thing is you've got to ask for data. Okay, sufficient, what is that to you? All right, if it's sufficient, tell me what that is, because we need to agree on that. Because sufficient to me may not be sufficient to you. So we need to really discuss this in the IEP, so that's detailed and explained in the progress report. And then you back it up with some data, because you can run your mouth as much as you want, but if you don't have anything to back it up, I'm not going to believe you. And this has to do with my child's education, so no pun intended, this isn't personal. I want the data. You got to say that, guys. All right, so the next thing is to meet the requirements, okay, of all of this stuff with your IEP. Your IEP team should review and analyze the present levels. I can't tell you how important your present levels are, guys. And I'm going to say that over and over and over again, because they're so darn important, okay? So go and take some time and read your child's present levels. Are they accurate? What are the strengths? Write them down for each subject area that they do. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What is it that has changed? What types of things do you feel are needing to be put in there? You actually have say-so. And especially right now, you're the only one who has say-so. So when you're asking for an IEP, I'm doing this as well, is you want to make sure that you are giving them your present levels as of now and having that put into your IEP. So look at your present levels. Look at where it says your child was. If it's not accurate, you need to put that in writing. If it is accurate, then now you need to reflect and look at where your child is now, because you've been the educator. The school hasn't seen them at all. They're getting ready to start school. Schools are wanting to change IEPs all over the place and amend them and whatever. Don't do it. We talked about that yesterday over on the group, so you guys have to go listen to that. But one thing you need to know is you're the only one in charge of your child's present levels right now. And I highly suggest that you change them. And it is in your control right now. It is. So I encourage you to do that. And if you need help or if you need any assistance, PM me. But you guys really need to focus on getting these IEPs straight and on point, because it will bite you in the butt this year. That's all I'm going to say. It will bite you in the butt. And later, you're going to say, man, I wish I changed the present levels because he's not there anymore. Or my child's not here anymore. My child's not cutting straight anymore where it says it's a strength. My child isn't cutting at all now. Or my child was reading fluently and my child's struggling now. Okay? Or maybe they're doing better, But either way, change your present levels to what you see now, and you can go back to the present levels that are there, if they're accurate, and build off them, or be able to see what is said and say, oh, he can do this, he can't do this, he can do that, he can't do that. And then you need to update them. All right? So you need to call an IEP meeting, you need to update them. I'm sure they're going to give you all kinds of hell, but they need to be updated. Where they are now is most likely for many kids not accurate. So you've got to change it. That's a must, okay? All right, so goals must be written to enable your child to be involved and progress in the general curriculum, all right, and to advance in other educational need areas. So if your child is not in the general curriculum and they're in a more restrictive environment, maybe start looking at, is there a way for them to be in more of a least restrictive environment, even if it's half the time, and with an attendant, or, with certain things in place to help them blend with the general population of children and children with non-special needs, to help them in ways in which, if it's a behavior issue, they'll learn to mimic different behaviors. Because, it's kind of almost, and don't come back in. 10 minutes. Skylar's wanting to take a walk, so she's like marking down the time. I said, Mom's going to be like 20 minutes, and I've already been 27, so she knows that. So I want you guys to really reflect on what your present levels are, and I want you to redo them. Write them up yourself first, all right? And then request an IEP. You need to go over your IEP and your goals and everything like that, because if your present levels are changing, your goals have to change, all right? So you'll have to write your goals into your IEP. You're going to, I got you guys in just a second. You're going to have to change up the present levels to what they are now, because your child has not been in school. You're going to need to describe what your child can reasonably do and what they can't do, and have high expectations. So if, say that, just hypothetically, say they can only say half the alphabet. As a teacher, I highly discourage teaching your child how to sing the alphabet. It confuses them. It's fun. There's other cool songs, and I know my mom used to sing the alphabet to me, I used to sing it to my kids, but it changes their brain, all right, and how they look at letters in the beginning. And so if you teach them how to sound out the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, versus singing it, because if you have your child sing it, and because I used to do this when I did teach kindergarten, and I'd have them sing it, and then I would have them say it. And most of the kids that could fluently sing it could not say it. So make sure that your child, can say the alphabet. Just say the child can say half the alphabet, all right? And as a parent, you want to say, okay, well, by the end of the year, my child can then say the whole alphabet. The school may say, okay, she'll get 3/4 of the way done. No, because you only have quarters left, kind of thing, to get to the end. So having high expectations is to finish it up and then to be able to fluently say it, all right? And that can be a goal for the following year, to then fluently say the whole alphabet. So the first goal would be get to the whole, the end of the alphabet. The next year, a small short-term objective would be to get to, saying it fluently, consistently, that sort of thing, and then move on to another goal. Describe only what your child can reasonably be expected to accomplish within 1 year, but also that there's written and measurable terms. So in writing measurable terms, that is how many trials need to happen so that we can say, okay, that goal is mastered. And where does that goal need to be done and with whom to be mastered? So a lot of times, and look at your IEPs, because I bet you every single one of you have goals that say stuff like this, that 3 out of 4 times or 3 out of 4 trials. Schools love to use 3 out of 4. I hate it. I hate it so much because anybody can do something 3 times. If they're given, because they're memorizing it. So if 4 times they're to say, 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 3 is 16. 4 times 3 is 16. And then they got it. So it's just memorizing, because what happens when they get it right? Someone's face changes. Something changes in someone's body language that child picks up on. And so they just start saying that because it's a positive thing and feedback that they got. So bam, it's mastered. Teachers know that. Educators know that. I know that as an educator. So how easy was that goal to accomplish? Your child mastered it, and then you do it at home, and you're like, no, he hasn't. He hasn't mastered it, right? So you have to make sure that there's enough times. That's why I like to say 9 out of 10 trials. And 90%, and I put them together. All right. So trials is better than percent, but if you do the both together, then it makes more sense. All right. We'll talk about writing goals later. And so it's really important to make sure that you have things written out in such a way that it's a no-brainer for anybody to read. It's important to have things written out in such a way that if you look at a goal, that that if you went back to the present levels, you would see where that goal came from and why. So if you have goals in your IEP and there's nothing in the present levels that talks about a deficit of where that goal is, of where that goal came from, or why it's there, then you need to start questioning why. You need to find out why your child is supposed to do double-digit subtraction with carrying over if they're just learning subtraction in their present levels. Okay? Or just different things that are put into your IEP that just don't make sense, that we don't think about, that we're not trained to think about. So you want to start thinking about those things. One other thing is you want to include 3 parts. Yes, it is the first of the 4. Maybe I should put that in the title. Yes, it is. All right. Okay. So if you're just joining, post a 1 below if it's your first through third time joining and seeing me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. And make sure that you share this, because there's lots of parents out here that don't know about me or don't know about IEPs and have children that are going through a rough time, or they're going through a rough time, that just sharing it would be super nice. It's not about me, it's about them learning. Plus, your name will go into my hat at the end of the month, and you win different things, whether that be Amazon card or it may be an hour with me, just little things like that. All right, so make sure that you share. All right, next thing, 3 different areas, okay? And this is part of your goals, all right? Expected change in performance specifies the anticipated change in performance from the baseline, all right, and usually reflects an action or can be directly observed. Let me repeat that, all right? These are my notes. This is, I write all my stuff, and a lot of times I'll change it into a course or some sort of, I'll do a webinar, stuff like that. So I write it differently than I say it. All right. So the goals must include 3 parts. 1, expect change in performance. Okay. And that needs to specify the anticipated change in performance from the baseline. So another thing that needs to go in your present levels is the baseline. So your child's baseline of where they started, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses, what they're working on, and then that needs to be reflected into the goals. All right? Because if you don't know the baseline, you have no idea if they made progress. Okay? And that's why right now you guys need to start writing down, where's your child right now? Where's their baseline? Where's their present levels? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? All right? And then look at their goals, look at their present levels, and say, weakness on such and such IEP states XYZ. At this time, August 2nd, 2020, my child is no longer doing this, or my child is now doing this. And then you're going to be changing up goals. Do you see how going into this year is going to be so different, and why it's so important to get your IEPs straight and on target? Because if you don't, you're going to be working on things that may not be appropriate and adequate for your child right now. All right. Number 2, proposed area of change. So this needs to identify skill. It needs to be knowledgeable. It needs to be understanding the behavior. And this is important. Okay. So it's important to propose an area of change in the goal. It's important to identify the skill. What skill are they learning? What is the purpose of this skill? So before a goal is made, the purpose of it needs to be specified. And there has to be an understanding of, okay, we're coming up with this goal because there has to be a reason for that goal to be put in play. All right? When I work with a parent and we do goals and I read goals for them, most of it is based off if they tell me their present levels are accurate. And then typically my parents will add more to it. I'll ask lots of questions of, where's your child now? What have you worked with them on this? And what are you seeing in your child, and what's going on with this goal? Because a lot of parents work with their kids and they're being told one thing from the school and they're seeing another, and there's this big tug of war of, distrust and so on and so forth. And you got to get it together. Stop the tug of war, find out the answers, and get things changed so that change can happen, so that progress can happen, so that you guys stop being frustrated and you're seeing progress in your child versus you be on this hamster wheel that I've been on and you don't know how to get off. That you're just pedaling and you're trying to figure out any which way you can to be able to jump off, but nothing's changing. You're getting the same response. You're getting the same comments. You're feeling like you're hitting a brick wall. Or if they do give a little, it's really not making that substantial change. It's just them giving a little to make you feel like, they did something. And you're feeling like it's just not working. All right. You really need to focus on getting that together. I can't say this enough. There's so many things going on right now and so many different things with different districts going on. But at the end of the day, even though all this stuff that I'm teaching you right now is so imperative, it's even more imperative now, because if your child's going to be learning online and virtually, Sky, what did I say? When I'm done, I will come out. Shut the door.
How much is that?
10 minutes.
It's up.
It's up?
Yes.
Just give me 10 minutes. All right. She is going to have my head. I told her 20 minutes. We're going on 40 now. All right. So just make sure that you really focus on the fact that we're going into a different type of school year that none of us have ever experienced. Idea hasn't changed. Our kids still need to make progress. Parents are frustrated. Lawsuits are happening. FAPE is not happening. I could go on and on. And maybe this isn't you. Maybe your situation's awesome. And believe me, there's so many people that admire that, if that is you. But there's so many people that are just lost and not knowing what to do and not knowing what route they're supposed to take or how they're supposed to take it or what they're supposed to do. They're hearing 50 million different things, and they're just trying to make the best decision that they possibly can as parents. And as a parent, okay, with a child with special needs and autism, and I want you guys to really understand that the present levels, goals and data, services, accommodations, and modifications are so imperative right now. They're always imperative, but they're even more imperative right now, because what are you going to do if your child's already gone 6 months or whatever it is without direct one-to-one instruction? Many of our kids need that. They're dealing with virtual learning. They're not making a whole lot of progress. I can't tell you how many messages I get where they say, hey, this is what's up. My kid's not learning. This virtual stuff is not working. What do I do? My school system says that, they're not even going to be able to provide services this year. They're trying to make me sign an IEP, and the IEP says this, and this. And another lady told me they're trying to make me sign this amendment, and then the amendment says that my child can't get speech and occupational therapy because that can't be done, virtually. And I just cannot believe these things because they're so inaccurate and so not true that it's shocking that this is being told to you. And I can tell you it is not true. Do they want it to be like that? Sure. If you look online, OSEP, has been asked by many different school districts, most of them, for them not to be liable and for provisions to be put in place so that they're not liable, because they know they're not providing FAPE. They know it. So they've asked multiple times to not be liable. So that should just go to show you and say very clearly, like I've said, FAPE is not going to be provided if it's done virtually, for a child with special needs, or the A part is not going to be provided. And so, and that's clear, very clear. So number 3 is proposed criteria specify the amount of growth. So how much and how frequent, or what standard or level of proficiency. So what does that mean? So level of proficiency is kind of that 9 out of 10 that I was telling you about. 9 out of 10 times, Timmy can cut a straight line. All right. And then, and that's the how much. How frequent, okay, is across all settings for 90 days. Okay. And that can be as many times as possible in those 90 days to do it 9 out of 10 times consistently for 90 days. Okay, so that doesn't mean just 9 out of 10 times. What that means is 9 out of 10 times consistently over 90 days. Okay, so sometimes in your IEPs, look at them. They may say over 7 days or over 15 days, or look at that. You want it to be for more time in that quarter that that it's mastered. And that if you do it at home, that it's something that they're being honest about, transparent about. Okay. So you want expected change in performance. You want that specific. and what that's going to be. All right. You want it to reflect an action that can be directly observed. That's number one. Number two is the proposed area of change needs to identify skill, knowledge, and understanding of behavior. Number three is proposed criteria, specifically in the amount of growth, of how much and how. Okay. So moving on to principles and formulating that goal. Okay. So, and then we'll cap it off right there, and then we will start series number two. Well, number two in the series of 4 tomorrow. All right. So a goal is able to be monitored. It should be in multiple ways. All right. And performance between present levels and criteria stated in the goal. All right. So the goal should be written so that it can be monitored frequently. So data needs to be taken each and every time that that goal is worked on. And it should state very clearly how many times they worked on that goal, how many times the child got it wrong, how many times the child got it right, where the deficit is, where's the difficulty, basically, is what that is, and what it is that is being done to fix that. All right. The other thing is the goal needs to be useful in making decisions in regards to your child's education. So as that goal is worked on, let's say that your child is completely stuck on it, that it's not a good goal. All right. And say you agree with that you've done it at home. You're just like, he's not here yet. I think we were pushing too hard. You want your child to be successful. You want them to progress. You don't want to have low expectations, but you do want to be realistic, which is in SMART goals. Okay. So if you know in your gut that a goal that is in place is just not realistic right now at this time, but can be put in place, maybe 6 months down the road, change it. Okay. Because we want your kids to succeed. We want them to have that accomplishment. You want to decrease the frustration. You want to make sure that it is being effective, okay, and that there's progress being made. Another thing that you want to think about is if progress is not being made, is it so much your child? Let's just take reading. You guys know reading is my sore spot. If your child is not making progress, it is not always them. A lot of times it's actually not always them. A lot of times it's actually how they're being taught. Each of our kids learn differently. They have special needs. They have unique individual needs. How they are taught is everything. For example, in reading, for a child that has dyslexia or dysgraphia or any of those reading and speech and writing arena areas, okay, structured literacy is known to be what works. Orton Gillingham, etc., etc. Structured literacy. Not the way that kids are taught today, which is more memorization. All right. Structured literacy is more phonemic awareness. And we'll talk about reading another day. I know a lot of you have asked me to talk and have content on reading, and I will do that. So sometimes it's not your child, and your child up there just can't learn it. They're just struggling. We need to change the goal. Sometimes we need to change the teacher. Sometimes we need to change how that teacher is teaching. And let me tell you something. There's a difference between a qualified teacher and a qualified teacher. Did you know that? A qualified teacher is a licensed teacher who has a bachelor's degree or whatever it is in your state that they require teachers to have. And so they're hired because they have the requirements to be a teacher. That's one qualified. Another qualified is that they're qualified to teach your child. Did you know that they actually have to be qualified to teach your child? That they have to understand your child's unique and individual needs and meet those needs. And if they can't meet those needs by how they are teaching, they're not qualified to teach your child. Did you know that? True. And I didn't know that either, guys. I mean, a lot of the things that I teach you guys are things that I screwed up on. So, for those of you who know a little bit of my story, I screwed up for 6.5 years. And so, even though I've been through tons of training and I was a teacher and, I've worked with kids for over 22 years, I did a whole lot of screwing up, and it's one of those things where all the education I had doesn't teach you an IEP. My daughter's a teacher. She doesn't know how to write an IEP. That's not what she learned. She's an English teacher. She teaches high school. She has children in her class that she has to accommodate their IEPs, and she knows because of our situation and her sister how important that IEP is. So she knows how to read it as far as what is it that needs to happen on her end. But is she taught about IEPs? Is she taught about, how to implement them in all areas other than just her specific area? No, teachers aren't taught that. They have to learn it. And everybody says that I have no common sense and I just have book knowledge. It's so true. No, I have common sense. My husband always makes fun of me, and my son too. Mom, you have no common sense. You're just so smart. Well, it is what it is. I like doing stupid things sometimes because it's fun. Like, believe it or not, I like to have fun. The IEP keeps me so serious that when I do get to have fun, and I do have fun, that I like to have fun. And so I'm strict and headstrong and serious and get all worked up when it comes to IEPs. But other than that, I'm a total goofball. So just so you guys know. But IEP stuff, I'm just super passionate about, and it's something that I'm just good at. How, I guess, experience, passion, because I've been there, done that, and I still go through stuff. So, I always say I'm in the trenches with all my parents because there's no perfection, and all we can do is get better and better and advocate as best we can for our kids. So, all right, let's finish this up because Sky's going to be knocking on the door again. All right, it's so true, Cynthia, so true. And that's what I had to do no, I know it wasn't to point at me, but I always like to make jokes of myself just because I am a goofball. But when it comes to IEPs, like, Cynthia, I'm super passionate and serious about it. And, obviously it's something near and dear to my heart, because I have a child that I've fought for, all her life, and I'll fight for the rest of her life. All right. So let's finish this up. So the annual goals and the team need to get together, and those goals need to show the direct relationship between the present levels and the educational performance. So what's in the present levels and their performance needs to be in the goals. If you have goals that don't reflect back to the present levels, then something's wrong. Okay. Number 2 is describe only what your child can reasonably be expected, like we were just talking about, to accomplish within that 1 year. All right. But that. What big expectations are for your child, and, go with that. But also be realistic that if you know yourself, not just from what the school's saying, unless they can provide some solid data, that your child can't do it. Or, and that just means tweak it a little bit. And the other thing is you gotta figure out, is it how they're being taught? That, guys, is everything. Don't always think it's your child and, they can't learn. They can't make progress the way they should. No, children with special needs by law need to make progress in lieu of their disability. And if they're not, you have to figure out what that issue is. Is it they are struggling and we need to relook at goals and present levels and have evaluations again and private evaluations? Or does that mean that who is teaching them, it's not working? They're not working for your child. How they're teaching is not working for your child. You're not allowed to say to the school, I want this person working with my child and not this person. All right? You're not. But if that person is not teaching your child and your child is not making progress, that person is not working and is creating a procedural violation based off their lack of knowledge, lack of experience when it comes to working with children with special needs. This happens a lot with service providers, specifically reading specialists. Speech and OT are used to working with kids with special needs. They're usually great. The only issues I've ever had with speech and OT is making sure that goals are up there and challenging, and data. Not outside OTs, but in school OTs. So watch for that. Just watch for data. Make sure you get your logs, your service logs, so you know when that person signed in and signed out. When were they sick? Did your child get makeup services because that person was sick? If they didn't, why not? Your child doesn't not have services because somebody was sick or their child was sick. So pay attention to that stuff. Okay, so number 3, are they written in measurable terms? How are they measured? How are those goals measured? If you don't understand the term measured, let me know. That doesn't make you stupid in any way. It's not like a ruler. So it doesn't make sense. So if you need help with that, you need a better understanding to kind of grasp it. I did too, so please ask. The other thing is prepare your child for his or her desired post-school activities when planning for transition. So if your child's in transitions, that has to go into the IEP. It has to be specified how that's going to look, how it's going to happen, all that kind of stuff. And that's on a legal standpoint. Okay. So just make sure that that goes into play. All right. So goals should be general statements that focus on deficit areas. Okay. Goals should be designed to address the needs identified with your child. A statement of the child's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance needs to be stated. Goals should be challenging and describe what your child can reasonably be expected to accomplish, just like we just talked about. I'm kind of recapping for you. All members of your IEP team should easily understand the language of the goals, as should anybody picking up your IEP off the street that doesn't know your child or you at all. Okay? How it is actually in the advocate world, a 10-year-old should be able to pick up your IEP off the side of the road, be able to read your child's goals, and know exactly what has to happen. Goals should be written to increase your child's success and participation in the general curriculum as best as possible, and allow for inclusion. All right. And that could mean inclusion in certain areas, like PE and music and, maybe even just science, but you want to include your child in the gen ed curriculum, period. All right. I don't care what the disability. Okay. All children need to be exposed to that, even if their deficits and their disability is extreme. And the services, accommodations, and modifications must be put in place so everybody stays safe and everybody continues to learn. But your child deserves that, and it's their right. Goals should be stated so they are meaningful. And a couple questions that you can kind of ask yourself in reference to accomplishment of the goal, if you will, and what would be necessary for them to succeed and make progress would be, do you believe accomplishment for that goal is important? Does the goal specify a level of performance and expectation that's reasonable? Another thing you can look at is if they're measurable, and they better be, they must reflect behavior also that can be measured. And behavior should definitely be a goal if that affects your child in any way. Behavior goals are imperative. Goals should be written so they can be monitored frequently and repetitively. This is how data is created. Goals should be written to enhance decision making, meaning it is a procedural violation for the school system, for your team of educators to not advise you that your child is not making progress. It is a procedural violation of them to not state that because there's no progress being made, that they suggest alternative routes. And this is what they suggest and why. Because XYZ is not working. If schools, districts, your team, allows your child to continuously fail, to not make progress, and not advise you of this, you haven't received data, but you just received these progress reports, so you just assume that progress is being made, that is not okay. The school is then failing your child, number one, to provide them FAPE, but to also advise the parent and put you in a position to adequately advocate for your child. They are not providing you the information you are legally allowed to have in regard to your child and your child's education so that you can properly and adequately participate in the IEP meeting. Violation number 2. All right. Goals should be written to enhance decision making. All right. Monitoring the goal provides data that can be used to determine effectiveness in the educational program. So basically, what I'm saying here is that the goals should be written in a way so that not only can it be monitored, but it will show visually how effective that goal is and how it's monitored and what it looks like and how your child is continuing to make progress and get to mastery. So it should show the flow of the goal, of the continuous progress, the continuous monitoring, the continuous data based off the monitoring, it being completely measurable because it's flowing and working for your child because it's adequately and accurately based off, number one, the baseline, number 2, the present levels of where they are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses is, work with the strengths and work harder on the weaknesses, create goals off the weaknesses and make them to where they're so concrete. Like I've argued with IEP teams on how they write goals because they don't make sense at all. And why write it that way? There's another way to write that same thing, but where it makes sense, to where any other human being that isn't an educator can read it and understand it. And that's actually how an IEP should be written, in a way that the general public can read it. It doesn't say in educational verbiage. It doesn't say in French or English or Spanish. It says straight up how the general public can read it. Okay? And I don't know if you guys know this, but especially in the Spanish and Hispanic community, I have quite a bit of Hispanic in me. My mom is as white can get, and my dad's, I think I'm a mutt. That's what I am. I'm a mutt. But anyway, you can actually have IEPs written in your native language, and then also in English. You can have both. Just like you can have an interpreter at your IEP meeting. And that has to be accommodated to you, okay? Because I can't tell you how many people who they know English, but they more speak Spanish or whatever other language you speak. I work a lot with the Hispanic community. My best friend is Hispanic, and we've talked about this so many times where, it has to be written in the way that you're going to understand it best. So make sure that that's accommodated for you because that's important as well. Okay? So you should be able to have it in English and Spanish. You should be able to have it in French and English, always in English, but then also in your native language. All right, so the other thing is goals should reflect transition needs. So if that's appropriate. So if your child is at the transitional age, that can be going from the elementary school to middle school, that could be middle school to high school. The biggest one is middle school to high school, and that's when things have to be put in place as far as transitional services. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be talking the step-by-step procedures for creating, determining measurable goals, and we're going to continue this series tomorrow. So it has been an hour and 5 minutes. I promised Skylar I would only be 20 minutes. She's checked in on me twice, so I am going to go. But hopefully you guys, really enjoyed today talking about goals and present levels and the importance of that. And if you have questions, I see your questions. I'm going to have to answer them later because I promised her that we would go for a walk. So if you're jumping on, post a 1 below if you're new, first through third time watching this. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Post your questions in the comment section. I promise to answer them this evening when I'm hanging out with the family and watching a movie or something. So I promise to answer them. PM me if you need anything. If you haven't grabbed my services, accommodations, and modifications course, please do. I can post the link for you. It's something that's super important right now. I will be launching Rock the IEP, my big course, pretty soon. And I hope you guys enjoyed today. I hope everything's going good for y'all. And if you need help revamping your IEPs, please contact me. I'll be pretty busy for the next 2 weeks, but then I can get started. So you're welcome to book your time now. But yeah, for the next 2 weeks, I'm kind of crazy. But after that, I open up just a little bit. So it's always smart to book ahead of time. So with that said, welcome to all the newbies. I see you guys. I'm going to be answering questions later. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.